What's up, everybody? Welcome to BioS3 Raw TV. So for years now, we've been going through the whole bro science versus science. I don't want to call them science geeks. I made that mistake in the other video, which is really a derogatory statement. I shouldn't call them geeks, but you know, the wingnut science people. And it's been going back and forth, this debatable war. I have noticed, though, in the last year or two, these science-based individuals are losing. More and more people are kind of walking away from them, despite them knowing big words and being able to cite studies and having fucking PhDs and MDs attached to their name and shit. People are actually walking away from them because they're not happy with what happens based on the knowledge that they have. Now, let me start off by saying I understand that. Why? Because these science-based individuals have been taking science, nutrition, diet, in whatever you want to call it, training, all of it, going backwards, okay? Just like many of the supplement industry did. Now, let me start with the supplement industry. Back in the day, we had essential amino acids, we had, protein powders, we had weight gainers, we had very basic stuff, and everybody got good results. Everybody grew, everybody looked fantastic back in the day, right? Fast forward, we have all this new science, we have all these studies, these new things that have popped up, and people look worse than ever. Why? Why have the physiques gone backwards? Because they went backwards with the actual science. Instead of staying with the things that actually worked, they forgot about the things that were actually the basis and foundation, and they started doing all this other random shit that was supposed to be new things that came out. Now what happens is bodybuilding has to go backwards again and get those foundations. Like now we're seeing the essential amino acids being a big thing, right? They weren't a few years ago. It was all about these crazy fucking pre-workouts, and the pre-workouts still being made now. Motherfuckers are taking pre-workouts, they look like shit. They're not gaining a pound of muscle. They may be out of the gym for 3 hours fucking banging away, but it's not working. But they keep taking it because they keep feeling it. So these science people that keep coming up with these new things, or they keep like, well, the new study says this. It's like, yeah, but that new study shows that this is half the results that the person got over here doing this. But you're saying this doesn't work. That got better results than this. It hasn't even been studied. How do you make that? How is that possible? And I think a lot of people, they don't really understand that. So let's talk about the whole diet thing. Now, the whole diet thing, we have study after study after study after study coming out, and we have the science crew, the science-based people talking about like the newest thing and how this works and how that works and blah, 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 blah. And I'm sitting here going, all these studies really have nothing to do with bodybuilding. They're really not studying the environment that a bodybuilder or a fitness enthusiast is actually in. They try to kind of put things together, but really, I haven't seen one single thing other than that contest prep study that followed the contest, the natural competitors that showed that their hormones were fucked at the end. That's the only thing I've really seen bodybuilder-wise, but I've never seen anybody sit down and say, I'm going to track 5 years of this one individual on keto, and then we're going to track another individual. Then what we're going to do is we're going to put 5 people together, and we're going to fucking, like, I've never seen anybody, like, take the intensity and apply it the way that bodybuilders, etc. have to get the results. Instead, it's just a bunch of weird, random fucking shit thrown together. So now what happens is bodybuilding itself is always 10 to 15 years ahead of what the science fucking crew knows. And that's why things have gone backwards. So let me explain. So, for instance, you may have the keto diet. We're talking about the keto diet, right? And we had the basic keto diet, which was the regular keto diet, which was high fat, low protein, no carb, right? And for years and years, this was the type of diet. And it wasn't good for a bodybuilder. Meanwhile, everybody else was talking about the low carb sensitivity, the high growth hormone. However, not enough protein means you can't maintain your muscle mass. Can't maintain your muscle mass, then you're not going to be a good bodybuilder. You're going to lose muscle. Your metabolism slows down. It makes everything just a fucking mess. So my theory was if I increase the protein, decrease the fats, even certain types of fats I was using, I would get better results. Lo and behold, that worked. Now, I was doing that 10 or 15 years ago is when I started doing that with myself and clients. Now, just 2 years ago, I got a call from a doctor, her book that she wrote, and there was studies published in Europe on the keto diet where they did the same thing that I'm talking about, but it was 10 years after I did it. So they raised the protein, dropped the fats, and lo and behold, that version of the keto diet became something that athletes said it worked really well for them. So basically, that science caught up to something that I had done 10 to 15 years prior. That's the same shit that's happening now. When I sat down with my doctor, this is a great story. Dan Duchesne is where I learned how to use insulin from. And I sat down with my doctor, and my doctor, first of all, told me that steroids don't work. I went on them, I gained 60 pounds. I came back to the doctor about 4 months later. He was like, what the fuck? And I said, this is what I did. He goes, how does that even work? I'm like, I don't fucking know. I mean, this is what we do. We take steroids, we train, we eat, and this is what happens. Happens every time. The drugs work. And he was like, well, this one's for anemia. Well, this one built muscle for me. Anemia, whatever. It's fucking, they build muscle. And then they started doing other studies about, how they build muscle and stuff like that, and combinations. They still haven't done, like, studies on stacks. Bodybuilders stack these drugs to get a certain effect. Science doesn't even have a fucking clue. Science only knows what the drugs do individually. Bodybuilders figured out what they do when you combine them together. Now, someday maybe science will fucking do a study and show that like Winstrol stacked with this has this effect. But until that happens, it's all bro. But yet we know that it works and we're fucking light years ahead. So when I sat down with my doctor and he said, well, why are you taking insulin? I said, well, this is why. It's the storage hormone. It builds muscle. Da, da, da. I went through the whole spiel, right? He said, well, how much do you take? I said, about 10 to 12 IUs. And my doctor looked at me and said, how do you not die? I said, doc, what are you talking about? I said, 10 to 12 IUs, you eat 10 grams of carbs per IU. That's it. It covers it. And he was like, how did you figure that out? And I was like, well, Dan Duchesne said it. And he's like, well, how did he figure it out? I'm like, you're the doctor. Why don't you know how to do this? And it really kind of blew his mind and made me step back and go, what the fuck do you guys know? If you don't know about this shit, what else do you not know about, right? So now we have this point in time where the doctor's asking me all kinds of questions about, so why growth hormone? Why this? Why that? Right? And now bodybuilders, by the way, understood that stacking human growth hormone with insulin, with IGF together, caused an even different response that gave them the fucking mutation, like fucking GH15 used to call it, that blew them up and made them fucking lean. So bros figured out something that science to this day still hasn't studied. They have not studied the fact that androgens, how they work with the growth hormone and the fucking insulin and the IGF together with the certain environment of the training, with a certain diet. That still hasn't been done, but we know it works. Science wingnuts are not going to argue that the fact that we stack certain drugs to get it to work, but science only says that these do certain things alone. They don't even fucking, they've never even been studied together. So I step back and I just go, listen guys, you may be science-based, that's cool. But science-based is way back here while bros are over here. Bros are over here fucking pioneering shit while science individuals are trying to catch up to that. They're so stuck in the past or behind us because they only go with what's been studied and what they know. They never once say, I'm going to experiment because I don't know. Imagine if somebody never experimented with those stacks. Those cycles never would have been found. The physiques wouldn't have changed, which might have been a better thing. But the physiques never would have changed if the science people fucking stuck to their guns and everybody followed them. But instead what happened is some bro over here said, well, I'm going to put DECA and D-ball together. And lo and behold, there's a synergy to it. They didn't know that before. It was found by people experimenting and not fucking scientists. By coaches in fucking Olympic lifting and powerlifting over in Russia, in the Soviet Union, in Bulgaria, were you combining these drugs. It was coaches, not scientists. It wasn't fucking doctors. It was coaches getting the results with their fucking clients. After that shit happened, science then studied it. And then they had a fucking a way of explaining how it works. But science was back here. So you're trying to tell me science is always back here, but these people think they're better than the bros who are so much further ahead of them in every aspect of the sport. And they act like they're fucking gods and we're stupid. Meanwhile, the bros are like, fuck you guys, and they just keep blazing trails and pioneering. And these motherfucker science people start slowly catching up. And lo and behold, they start saying shit. And we're like, yeah, we did that 10 years ago. Like, no, this is a new study. You did it 10 years ago. Yes, we did. We did it 10 years ago. We just didn't fucking talk about it all over the fucking internet like we were gods. We figured it out. We talked amongst ourselves and we moved on to the next fucking subject. And that's how it works. People like Tony Hughes that are fucking pioneering shit that will never be studied. Tell Tony Hughes that certain things don't fucking work because there's no studies that back him up. He's going to look at you and laugh in your fucking face. Dan Duchesne knew everything about the pharmacology of steroids. There was no information. There was no studies. There was nothing combining those drugs. He wrote the Underground Steroid Handbook by doing the experiments himself because he had theories based on them. And so let me see what this does. Let me see what that does. Let me combine these. Once he started doing that, he created a whole new fucking genre of how to stack drugs without knowing fucking anything about scientifically how they would stack together because it didn't exist. So in closing, guys, just remember, it's good to have the science. I find it interesting. I like to go to the science to find out why things work after we already found out that they do work. Then I like to find out why. But just because you don't know why something works doesn't mean that it's not working. Just because you know all the science doesn't mean that you're even close to understanding what a fucking bro knows. Just because you know big words and you know fucking what page it's on and who did what study, that motherfucker is still further ahead of you. And you can't fucking argue. You can't deny it. The motherfuckers that preach all this science stuff are always light years behind the individuals who are not giving a fuck about what studies took place already, but trying to figure out in the future what they can do to become better. The world is run by people that are futuristic and looking to do better and become something more. Not be stuck back here in the past with what they know and not thinking even remotely about what could be out there because some scientists didn't say it's out there. Newsflash, there's a lot of shit out there. Matter of fact, scientists don't even know what's on our fucking oceans. We have no idea what's in the fucking ocean most of the time, right? But does that mean that there's fucking not shit out there? No. So just fucking use your brain, people. Use a little bit of logic and stop being a fucking sheep and just thinking everything is so easy and all the studies have everything. Listen. If all the studies had everything in them and fucking we knew everything about everything, we wouldn't have any questions about anything. But we got tons of fucking questions. You know why? Because science is not the be-all, end-all. It is basically telling you what someone else already figured out, and then after they figured it out and applied it and something happened, they needed to figure out why. Then the study is run, and then they say, okay, this is why it works. This is how it works. This is why it works. But we already fucking knew it worked. Bottom line is, guys, bros will always be ahead. Science will always be behind. And I'm hoping that they bridge the gap someday so they can work together. But it's just sickening to sit back and watch these motherfuckers sit here and complain and bitch and laugh at the people who are actually giving the fucking information out that they're learning. And then these fucking science people, it gives them something to actually study. These motherfuckers, without the bros, you'd have shit to study. You would have nothing to study because you wouldn't have any fucking ideas because you don't have any ideas. You don't think. You only go by what fucking people tell you. You go by what you're told. You don't think. The fucking bro is over here thinking. He's imagining. He's pioneering. The science guy is sitting here going, well, I was told this. I was told that. I was told this. Which one is out there is going to get further? The one who's told something or the one who knows something? Exactly. BibleStudyTraining@gmail.com. Leave comments down below, but don't fight. BibleStudyTraining.com is a blog. It's the I Know Some Shit bicep, and we are out.